Hello everyone, I am Jack and I'm back. And let me show you what I'm working on. To catch you up real quick, this is a splash mold off of a C2 Grand Sport fiberglass body conversion. And so I made a splash mold off of it so that I could make fenders myself. I made that front end myself off of this splash mold. There's the other part of the front end over there. So the intent was just to be able to make one-off parts. I didn't think I would be using this again, but here I am using it again. Had I known, I would have done a better job of making this mold, but it suits its purpose. But it also got stored and damaged. So anyway, live and learn. Always find out that I probably should have made a better mold whenever I make one, but this will work. All right, so then what I did was I cleaned it up. I did not put down any wax. I brushed PVA on because there were some cracks that I wanted to fill. I actually had to tape the backside to keep the PVA from running through the crack. And then once that PVA cured, then I sprayed the PVA, did the typical light mist coat, several of those, and then did a heavy coat, and it worked just fine. After that, I put the wax on right here, the paste wax. This is specifically for fiberglass or composite work. Actually set it in the sun so it was really soft. That way I could just brush it on top. Actually, I used a paper towel just to spread it. Did not try to brush it, to rub it in or anything. I just put it on there, left it on thick because I just wanted a barrier between the PVA and the gel coat. So the next thing I did was I put the gel coat in. This gray happens to be sandable gel coat. The reason I did that is because normal gel coat's difficult to sand. There's the sandable, there's the regular, and then there's the tooling. The tooling's real hard to sand. The middle one, regular one, it's kind of hard to sand. And then the gray stuff is easy to sand. Make sure it's not just gray colored regular gel coat, that it really is the sandable gel coat. Makes a huge difference. All right, so then what I did was I made a pattern. I put my fiberglass chopped strand mat on top of there and then used my marker to mark edges and stuff, and I cut out a pattern. There was a huge controversy in one or more of the fiberglass groups or kit car groups or whatever groups about, oh, you're an idiot wasting time making patterns. You should just take the material and tear it into strips and put it on there. And then others say, and then you should get a piece of cardboard, put it down, soak the piece in resin, and then pick up the resin soaked piece and stick it in place. Well, if I had two people, that would be much easier, but with myself, it's very difficult. Once you put it down, it's where it is. So you better place it accurately the first time. I can't do that. I was using big pieces. I was doing whole fenders at the same time. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't hold the thing. So I don't do it that way. The other thing is you end up getting fiberglass resin everywhere, and fiberglass, because as soon as you get the resin on your hand and you touch the stranded mat, then it comes off on your gloves, and your gloves end up a furry mess like this. This started off as just a normal roller, and just in rolling, this is what it picked up. These strands come off. Once you get any kind of resin on it, it just pulls off. So my preference is to cut patterns and do it that way. The other reason I do that is I work in carbon fiber, and I used to work exclusively in fiberglass cloth, which both of those you have to cut. You can't just stick them up there. What I didn't know when I first started using it, I tried to use this chop strand mat, and it's stiff. And I went, this stuff sucks. Like trying to get it down in the corners and stuff like that, it just didn't want to go. What I found out is these are nothing but a whole bunch of little fibers, and they're glued together, we'll call, or bound together with some kind of material. And that material is dissolved by polyester resin or even the other resin. It is not dissolved by epoxy, so you can't use this with epoxy. But if you use any of the other resins, it dissolves it. So once you soak it there, let it soak for a little while, it breaks up the binder and allows this to be individual strands that are much more flexible and can go around corners and do that kind of stuff. So when I do this, I am going to make sure I soak any of the areas that need to bend first. Then I'll go put the resin on the other areas, and then I'll come back and work those areas. But you want to get the areas that need to bend soaking first, because it dissolves. The longer it sits in it, the more it dissolves. And again, that's the advantage of doing the cardboard thing, is when you soak this on the cardboard, on the resin, and you pick it up, it is a sloppy mess. It's very flexible. So that's one of the advantages, is it does lay better. But again, I hate getting covered in fiberglass. So for me, and all your tools get covered. So I let the people that work for me do it however they want, but I will not work with someone that does it the other way, because every tool gets soaked with fiberglass resin and I get it all over me. I don't like wearing gloves if I can avoid it. So I just try to not get into it. All right, anyway, enough of that. Pick your poison, do it however you want. But again, I'm going to keep on doing it this way because it works for me. And I don't care if there's some air pockets in there. I mean, seriously, I'm not building, nuclear weapons or anything. I'm just making body parts. And as you've seen, most of my body parts end up being modified anyway. In the future, when I'm making a real production car, I'm going to go ahead and do that. In fact, I'll probably have them spray fiberglass on there. But that's a messy, and I would outsource that because I don't want to deal with that mess. All right. The next thing is this area right here. You saw how difficult the nose of the car was to do because of the 90-degree angles. Well, this has two 90-degree angles. It has a U shape. There's no way that it's going to be easy to get this CSM to fit into that U joint. So what I'm doing instead is I got this fiberglass chopped strands. These happen to be 1/4 to 5/16, 4 pounds of it. They are little bitty pieces. You can see right there. All right, so then what I do is I mix them with fiberglass resin. In this case, I am mixing it 1-to-1 by volume. So if I use a cup of resin, then I use a cup of these fiberglass strands. What I end up making is this slurry right here. So if you look, and I want it about like that so that it will hold in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and put it in these low areas where the 90-degree corners are to round out the corners or fillet the corners. So I'm going to put it all in there, fill this in, not fill it all the way, but get it to where it will be easier to get the chopped strand mat to go in there. I'm going to do that in each one of these edges all the way around here. And then obviously just have to do it on the inside here. All right, let's see what else. Oh, and then the other end of this, I cut it and rounded it. I wish I wouldn't have stuck that in there, but I did. Because I'm going to end up getting this on me. I might have to cut this or break it. All right, so I trimmed this so that it fits down in here. So once I get this stuff in there, then I'm going to work my way along here and get it to have that kind of taper. I could sand it better if I wanted, but I don't care. It'll work good enough. The reason why it doesn't matter is because then the next step is to put the chopped strand mat on top of there, force it down, and so the end of this really doesn't matter the shape. It just has to be close. All right, and then I don't like to put this down. Oh, so I use lids to set things on like that. That way, if it makes a mess, it's on that lid. Okay, and that is an old paintbrush that I used for the gel coat. Sometimes you need something stiff. I've got brushes that are new, but sometimes you need something stiffer, so I save those for a little bit, and then I use those to force the material down into grooves and stuff like that. Patterns. So I first made a whole one piece, and then I decided it was too difficult to get it to make all these curves. So then I cut it into different sections. So, and then I mark them. I mark where edges are, where cuts are, things like that. So this, and then I mark this as R. It's hard to see, but there's an R there for the right. So that lets you know that goes on the right side. This one, it goes in the middle. And then that one goes in the left. It's easy to get the outline, obviously. So I just take the piece, set it on top of a piece of chopped strand mat like that. Trace the outline. But all these other lines are places where I cut reliefs to make it work. And so what I do is I get the part, I cut it out, and then wherever this piece is, these flaps, I lift up this flap and literally just make an L mark, and then another L mark, and then another L mark. And that way I transfer all of the cuts lines to the other piece. And then I just take the scissors and cut those cut lines. I know not to cut right there. If you are worried about that, use different colored markers. So I would use, say, a green for all of the bends and then a red for all the cuts. The other thing is I do not cut on the same spot. So in other words, I don't want to cut exactly in the same spot, because then when I lay it on, there's a chance that there's going to be a gap. So what I do is I cut in between each of these so that the cuts are offset from each other. Not a big deal, but as long as I'm doing it, I might as well. And then the final thing is, if you see the red lines there, it's hard to see over there, there's one over there. Same thing here, there's red lines there, here, and there. That's where the pieces overlap. So I will put this piece down first. Once I get it down and soaked, then I'll put this one on and make sure that this lines up with that line right there. And then the same thing over here. When I come over to here, I will line this up right there. Now, when I did this, there's a gap right there. I'll fix that. In the other piece that I made, the copy, I went ahead and left that corner there. I think that's everything. As far as the roller goes, that's to get the bubbles out of, or the air out from under. They have special ones that are grooved in aluminum, and there's some bristle ones and all that. They work great. My problem is I'm lazy. I hate cleaning stuff up afterwards. And honestly, I end up not cleaning it up. So then the resin hardens on those, and then it's a lot of work to get it off. I'm trying to set up a system to where I put it in acetone. The problem is acetone evaporates so quick that you've got to have some kind of system that's contained, and I haven't done that. So instead, I just use these rollers. Like I showed you, they end up like this. And you know what I do? I throw it away. Much easier than cleaning this stuff up. All right, that's got everything covered as far as I can think of right now. So I better get to work so I can get this stuff done. So my next step is, just like I said, I'm going to put the hardener in my slurry right here, put it in these corners and troughs and all that stuff. The other thing is, be careful when you add the hardener. Some people that I've seen online said, oh, when I put hardener in this stuff, it hardens way too fast. The reason why is they're putting the hardener in based on this whole volume. So in other words, let's say this is 2 cups, right? It is a cup of the chopped strands, and it is a cup of resin. Add only the amount of hardener appropriate for the resin. There's a 2 times difference in this case because it's a 1-to-1 mix. If I were to put it hardener in based on this total volume, yeah, it's going to harden real fast. So be careful of that. Be sure, like I said, if you mix it 2-to-1, then it's easy. I know, oh, I've got half as much resin in there as it looks like there is. So don't make that mistake. All right, I think that's it. So, like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate, and if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.